Again, everyone, continue. Uh, Again, good morning, and Bula Binaka from Suva, Fiji. Some of you were with us yesterday. It was a great session of getting to know the program, hearing from you on some of your questions. What we will do, for those that attended yesterday, we will go over as part of our recap the questions that came yesterday. It will be useful for those that are also attending for the first time today. But on behalf of IUCN Oceania, on behalf of Mr. Mason Smith, who is not with us this morning, but will join us at the end, to welcome you. Welcome the participants from across the region. I'm looking at the number, it's around 54. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your interest. At this juncture, to acknowledge our donors that is funding this exciting initiative across the Pacific, the European Union, AFD, the French, the Canadian government, Australia and New Zealand. One of the exciting partnership of the donors as joint response to climate change adaptation in our region, and we are very grateful for that partnership and the opportunity for programs, especially local projects that reach us right to our communities. Also to acknowledge our partners, AFD, the AFD Secretariat, the other partners of Kiwa Initiative, SPC and SPREP. Of course, for IUCN, we also want to acknowledge our implementing partner, which is the IUCN French National Committee, who will be dedicated to work with our French overseas territories in terms of supporting for access and technical support on the grants. We have a similar program of yesterday. What we will do after this, we will invite the Pacific Council of Churches to lead us in a time of devotion for prayer and a time to pause and acknowledge our spiritual link to the environment. And we are grateful for Reverend James or Mr. Nathaniel Rika to lead us in that. And after that, we'll do some ground rules and we'll go right into the programs. So without further ado, I will invite Mr. Nathaniel Rika, a well-known media personality here in Fiji and the region, Mr. Rika or Reverend James, if we can give you the time now to lead us in a time of devotion.
Good morning, friends, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm coming to you this morning from veterinarian surgery, so I beg your indulgence. But one of our members of our family, four-legged variety, was taken in this morning, so that's where I'm coming from. And I ask that we join in prayer at this time. God, our Creator, we give you thanks for all of creation. As we gather this morning, we ask that you will remind us of the great responsibility which falls on us to care for your Pacific, to care for your people, to care for all your creatures. Help us, Lord, to put creation at the center of all that we do, that we may care for everything that you have created, man, beast, and plant, fish. Guide us as we seek the wisdom to work together for the protection of this wonderful place we call our home. Make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. I just need you to talk to him.
Thank you, Mr. Rika. That's much appreciated. We wish you all the best as you attending to the injured member of the family there. I'll pass it to Amelia Zauzau for those that are logging in. Amelia will be your main contact point in terms of the grants. She's our grants officer. So we welcome Amelia, who is also just joining the IUCN team. And we're so grateful, Amelia, that you've joined the team at the right time as we're about to launch the program. So we hand it over to you, Amelia, please.
Thank you, Etika. Once again, good morning and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us in our awareness workshop today. So just a few brief points I'd like to share with us. As you can see on your screens, our program for this morning's awareness workshop. So we are on housekeeping. After this, we will have we will start right away with the introduction of the Kiwa initiative, where Etika will be sharing an overview of the Kiwa initiative local projects component, and that is the component of the Kiwa initiative that IUCN is leading. Followed by that is the Q&A session based on those introductions, on those presentations. After that Q&A session, we will then continue with the application process presentation. And then straight after that, we will take questions based on that presentation and general questions that you may have. Also, just with regards to Q&A, you will find on your screens the feature or the icon for Q&A, and we strongly advise that if you have any questions, to use that feature. I believe with our experience yesterday, there was a few or quite a number that sent in their questions through the chat box. And so we were not able to address those questions right away. So if you need questions to be answered, please, we request that you use the Q&A icon. You can find that on your screens. If you're finding difficulty in locating that, you can send us a message, send me a message, and we'll ask one of our assistants to help you in with this regard. That is an overview of the program this morning. Also, if you have further questions or you feel that your question wasn't answered properly, feel free to send us a message. I believe most of you that are joining this morning have received emails from our Kiwa initiative IUCN email address. We'll also put that up in the chat box. So if you have further questions that require specific answers, then feel free to use that email address. Again, I'd like to also highlight that probably not all the questions will be answered. We have a team that are screening the questions that are coming in, mainly because of time, and also questions that we feel will be beneficial to the general public that's joining us tonight, this morning. Those are the questions we will address first. If we have enough time, then we will try to get through all the questions that will be sent in today. So that's basically it. Throughout the sessions, feel free to send in your questions as Etika presents or as I do my presentation. Feel free to send in the questions as it comes, and then we will start addressing them when we come to the Q&A sessions. So that's an overview of how we will run the workshop today. Just before I hand over to Etika, I believe this is the second day of our workshop. So basically all that we had shared yesterday, we are sharing again today. And so we just want to get an indication of those that are attending for the first time, and those that are attending, that had attended the session yesterday as well. So very quickly, I request everyone present to just quickly select and attempt the poll that is before you. So the question basically is, did you attend the session on Wednesday, which was yesterday, or if this is your first time to attend the session? Thank you. So all the questions are coming in pretty quick. Thank you so much. So we have, okay, 12 left. Panelists, if you can also answer the poll so that we can get 100% feedback. Thank you. And we have 10 more we have to answer. Okay, I think we've, okay. I think we have a fair idea of how many people, okay, so the answers are coming in. Thank you very much. Okay, we've passed the 90% mark, so this is good. So I believe you can all see the poll. So we have around 81% who are attending for the first time, so welcome once again, and around 19% who had also attended yesterday's session. Thank you so much for your time. I shall now hand this time over to Etika.
Thank you very much, Amelia. And so very interesting. We have the 80% of you that are attending for the first time. It really was the intention of us running the same awareness for yesterday and today, so that we have opportunities for those that could not make it for the day one. I know we are all going through the stress of being at home, especially in Fiji, where a lot of your time are being spent in front of your computers at the Zoom meeting, working from home. But thank you very much for joining us this morning. We'll go right into the presentation. There are a few objectives of sort of learning objectives for this 1 hour session. One is that you would have a better understanding of the Kiwa initiative broadly, and then we'll give you some understanding of the component that IUCN is leading, which is the Kiwa initiative local project component. And under that, that you would understand the objectives of the grant, the types of activities that the grant that is eligible under the grant, the type of organizations, and also the countries that are eligible. That's not a difficult bit because it covers most of our Pacific Island countries. And also then we'll go over the process of application. So hopefully that would meet your expectation of joining us this morning. I'll go right into the give you a broad overview of the introduction of Kiwa initiative, introduce you the donors and the partners and the 3 different components. Then, as I mentioned, give you the overview of Kiwa initiative, the local project components, objective, the types of grant or funding range and duration, the eligibility, as in countries, organization, and types of activities. And then we'll ask Amelia to present on the application process. As on that slide, we'll take a Q&A break. So please use the Q&A chat to send in your questions while the presentation is going, and then we'll take a break after the eligibility presentation. We'll go over your question. We'll have the panelists. We have Mr. Ken Kassam, our IUCN Strategic Partnership Officer, who is, we're grateful because he was the one that actually worked on this proposal at the design phase with AFD. Thank you, Ken, who will be joining us as one of the panelists and the three of us. And we also have the IUCN team who is in the call that could please raise their hand if you want to contribute. And of course, I'm assuming we also have our AFD Secretariat that is joining us. And I'm not sure whether the French National Committee is with us this morning. So Q&A, two Q&A session. The focus really is to take your question. This will really help us in terms of moving forward as we launch the grant next week, Tuesday, the 22nd. So just a quick overview of Kiwa, the initiative. The initiative have three components: the local project, the regional component, and the technical assistance. The broad theme of all those three components is there. It's biodiversity protection, climate adaptation, and nature-based solution. And as I mentioned, we have those 5 international donors: EU, France, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And we are grateful for their investment of 35 million euros, which was officially launched in 2020. As we all aware, because of COVID, there were a lot of our regional and international meetings that were planned in 2020, like the Pacific Islands Roundtable, the IUCN World Conservation Congress. They were all targeted to launch the big splash of this investment. The eligible countries are 19, which is 16 Pacific Island countries and the 3 French territories. We'll give you more information on that later into the presentation. But those are the expected outcomes. One of the objective of the initiative, especially in the local projects component, is to really assist the access to grant. One of the result of the assessment is that in the Pacific, we're still struggling to access the climate adaptation grants. I think that goes from all levels, from government to NGOs, and we've heard our leaders during international meetings. They need the capacity so that we can access the grants. So that is one key expected outcome: the sustainability of the natural systems, reducing vulnerability, and strengthening our coordination across the Pacific. So those are the different components of the Kiwa initiative. As you can see, the one on your left, the local project, is the one IUCN is working on that we are discussing today. And then the regional projects with technical assistance, which is led by SPREP and AFD. I assume those of you would have may have also make application for the other components. Just how we look in terms of the local component. So IUCN has a finance agreement with the AFD to implement the grant, the 6 million investment that have been given to us through a finance agreement, and those are our obligation to AFD, and I've listed some of the other coordination mechanism under AFD. There is a donor steering committee, a secretariat, a technical task force, which include SPC, SPREP, and IUCN. And to your left, you will see the IUCN French National Committee. We are having a non-granting agreement with them, and their role is to assist the overseas French overseas territories, French Polynesia, New Caledonia, Wallis, and Futuna, in capacity building to access the grant, technical support, and assist IUCN in the technical review for the grant. You will see there are two arrows going there. Since IUCN has the finance agreement, we are fully responsible also for OCT in terms of implementation and management of the grant. And the lower box, which is the other PICT countries, Melanesia, Polynesia, and Micronesia, which are the English-speaking countries, going directly to IUCN. We will also have independent technical experts to assist in providing technical assistance, especially in reviewing the technical proposal for the medium or larger grants that are coming in. So within IUCN, we have our team, a steering committee, the Kiwa team program. At the moment, we have two staff on board, Amelia and myself. Amelia, the grants officer, and I'm coordinating, and we are hiring a capacity building officer and a ESMS officer to support the countries and especially you grantees. So there is a well-supported program in terms of human resources. We will really focus in supporting grantees as we launch the grant. The objective of the local components. The main emphasis really is strengthening resilience of the PICT ecosystems, economies, and communities in terms of climate change. And as I mentioned, one of our core responsibility for IUCN is to improve access of the grant allocated to climate adaptation in terms of the allocation for us. The types of the funding range and duration. We will have very small grants, which goes from 25 to 50,000. We initially put 12 months, but we've increased it a bit to give us more time for implementation for very small grants. Small grants above 50,000 euros to 100,000. That will go for up to 24 months, and then the medium that will go from 100,000 to 400,000 for 36 months. The medium grants, the first call, it is, we would encourage those that want to go for medium grant to really focus on the first call, because it will give you more time of implementation. As we launch, you have till end of 2024 to implement the projects. We hope to open another call in beginning of next year, but that will start reducing your time of implementation because we want all the grants to close by end of 2024. So for our reporting purposes, back to the donors. In terms of allocation, it came one of the questions yesterday. Do countries have a specific allocation? The answer is no. The grants are open across the ACP and the OCTs, but there is a threshold that we are targeting for the French territories of maximum of $1 million in terms of project. But everything will depend on quality of proposals as they are assessed. Eligible countries and territories, as I mentioned, there's 19. So they are listed there. Pretty much covers all of our countries, the geographic grouping, the Melanesia, Polynesia, and Micronesia, and the French territories, which I mentioned, French Polynesia, New Caledonia, and Wallis Fortuna, which our French National Committee will be facilitating. Eligible entities or organization, so broadly, civil society, community-based organization, international NGOs, and government or local and public institution. So the grant is quite open for all the sectors in the region, from community-based organization, international organization, and public institutions. We will go into some detail in terms of eligible grantees. Let me go to the types of actions. The types of actions, as we all know, when it comes to climate adaptation, it really pushes us to think outside the box of our business as usual projects. We have to think about how the impact of climate change in the different areas of our work, and then find those solutions. So the project or the initiative is asking us to design projects that employ cost-efficient, nature-based solution for climate adaptation. There are caveats there, which is, right-based, gender-sensitive, socially inclusive. So there will be some guide for you to make sure that those caveats are met in terms of the program. But the bottom line is nature-based solution and climate change. And if you go to the left, the integration of climate adaptation into this area of biodiversity conservation or natural resource management, the sustainable use of biodiversity of ecosystem, and enabling tools to achieve the first two bullet points. This include education, capacity building, in terms of enabling tools. So those broadly are the big picture objective of the grant. So it's nature-based solution and climate adaptation as the underlying objective, and how will you demonstrate these into biodiversity of conservation, natural sustainable use, into the other sectors that you may be working in, be it agriculture, fisheries, and other sectors that you're currently working with. So that's one of the core messages of the initiative, that we should to all keep our focus on nature-based solution and climate adaptation. So some questions were questioning yesterday, can we fund invasive species? The answer to that is, how will you link your invasive species work, or what climate change impact are you addressing, or what adaptation solution? How does the management of invasive species address which climate threats that your community is facing, and of course the ecosystem? We've listed here, it's not a exhaustive list, so this is really an open list. It's just some examples of possible activities, projects that you can submit, but it's not written in stone. It really depends on how you design your project. As I mentioned, the climate, nature-based solution and climate adaptation will be the core objective, or in terms of assessing your project. So conservation of biodiversity, from eradication of invasive species, coastal and marine ecosystem, species management. There can be mapping and research, but as long as it links to actual actions on the ground. In terms of community conserved areas, your LMMAs, the resource management, one of the areas also for research, as long as they are grounded with action. And then we move to the sustainable use. You can submit projects that supports livelihood that links to biodiversity and ecosystems, such as ecotourism. But like I mentioned, just make sure that you have a very clear idea of which climate challenge your community is facing, that you are addressing, and how this is a solution, and what solution. Financing mechanism and other actions that are listed there on sustainable use. This will be available to you as your guide. Very soon it will go up on the website. And also on the other side, it can fund enabling tools to support your NBS and climate adaptations, like public awareness and stakeholder engagement to strengthen the implementation. It's just a reminder again on the definition of what is nature-based solution. As we know, this is starting to become a global standard. IUCN is championing, working with our global teams and our leaders to start setting standards, so that we have a good standard to implement at all levels, the standard of nature-based solution. So in terms of the program, we will be looking at how nature-based solutions are actually applied in your project. And there will be indicators. So that is really just to remind us on the definition of the nature-based solution. For nature-based solution, just to look at those two areas, for those of us that may not be very familiar with it, it's nothing new. It's really looking at our societal challenges and the ecosystem-based approaches to address the impact of climate change in this context. As you can see there, the different societal challenges, human well-being, biodiversity benefits, and the approaches of our ecosystem-based approaches. I was just thinking, most of you have worked in the region in your different pet projects. So this is an opportunity for us to look at how we will integrate this in the context or the impact of climate change. It is really, really affecting our Pacific communities. As we all know, the cyclones, and the challenges that our Pacific communities are facing. So we hope you will be looking at your programs and looking at multi-benefits of climate adaptation, biodiversity, and human well-being in terms of the programs that you are looking at. Just another look at the NBS, and those are the list of societal challenges that we should be making sure that our project are addressing. Climate change, adaptation, not mitigation, disaster risk reduction, economic and social development, health, food security, water security, and environmental degradation. So it just ensure that your project addresses these societal changes also. Just another some sort of guide you can use on nature-based solution. You can address it from ecosystem restoration approaches, specific ecosystem related approaches, infrastructure related approaches, which is nature-based solution, green infrastructure, the ecosystem management approaches, and protected area approaches. So those are just guide as you design your action. Just some two quick example. Here in Fiji, the Fiji government have are starting to do our nature-based seawall, or they're calling it hybrid seawalls, where they're no longer building those big concrete infrastructure in front of our coastal communities, but they are now doing landfills and planting whatever grass and at the back and mangroves in the front. So from the climate change challenge, they have redesigned their coastal buffer system to be a more nature-based design, and those are the expensive benefits. It's in fact making it cheaper for the Fiji government. From at the moment, it's only costing them 20,000, more than 20,000 to 30,000 to do this coastal rehabilitation, versus more than 200,000 if they were going to build infrastructures. And congratulations, another example for Palau, their marine protected area and the big achievements that they are doing in Palau. So those are the societal challenges that is driving their work, and the nature-based solution of protected areas and the benefits. So those are the just to give you as a guide on types of action that the Kiwa grant will be targeting to fund. So we'll have a pause here, and we'll have some Q&A, and I'll pass it to Amelia to see if there's any questions that are coming. If not, we can go over some of the questions yesterday that have already been answered that would be useful to those that are coming in today. Amelia?
Thank you, Tika. So we have our first question here, and we'll pass this one to Ken. Will the grants be opened to academia, Australia, I mean, in this instance, in partnership with the local government from Vanuatu? So if I can ask Kenneth to just answer this question and probably add on some more information that will be very important to everyone. Thank you, Ken.
Hi, Amelia, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Hi, Gail. Thank you for the question. This is a really good question and a rather complex one because it has several parts to it. So academic institutions are eligible for the grants, but they must have a action component on the ground rather than being for pure research. So that's the first part of the question. Research questions are okay, but it needs to have some action on the ground. The second part of the question is around international organizations. So international organizations, which I guess an academic institution in Australia would be classified, need to have local partners. And the idea of these grants is really to get funds into the local partners. So, making sure that your local partner is really a big part of the grant, and getting some of the grant resources would be really important. And that might be complex with government in Vanuatu, for example, as a partner, but certainly not unthinkable. The third complexity here is that there's a preference when working with governments in the project. There's a preference for the very smallest countries that don't have so much civil society presence in them. And Vanuatu, while being a very small country, isn't one of the smallest countries in the region. So it's a bit of a complex question, and we might need to spend some time with that and discuss it with the donors for that very specific case. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Ken. Any more questions from the floor? Okay, so we've got another question here from Mr. Matt Kappa. Are the grants open to civil society in partnership with private sector or social enterprises? Maybe Etika, you can address this question. Thank you.
Okay. I'll answer the second part of the question. So basically we can't fund any for-profit organizations. So you can't use the grant for any of their profit activities, but partnership is encouraged. So the answer is yes. And as long as the private sector is not using the grant for profit. Yep.
Thank you, Tika. Hope that answers your question, Matt. And final question before we move on from Nick. I would like to know if the mechanism would like to see advocacy campaign type work, because at Save the Children, our core business is not a nature-based solution to adaptation, but it's more CBA focused. But we are very good at youth mobilization to change attitudes and behaviors of communities and decision makers. Would something like that be of interest? Etika or Ken, if either one you can attempt this question.
Ken?
I was about to pass that over to you, Etika. I think that this falls within the I forget what Etika called it, but the enabling conditions. So communications campaigns, as long as they have measurable outputs and are working towards some sort of nature-based solution would fall within some of the enabling conditions categories of the projects. And I would think that something like that would be welcome as an application.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, sorry, Etika, if we can just address just final question before we move on. What is the total budget for the grants in order to know how many projects may be funded?
The total grant is 3.7 million euros. We are estimating from around 10 medium grants as our bulk figures, and close to 30 to go between the small and very small. So we do have some target numbers, but at the end of the day, it's the quality of proposal and which ones that are aligned well. That so in terms of, we will also be quite flexible in moving between our target. Hope that answers that question.
Thank you, Tika. In interest of time, we will move on with our presentations. For those that have just passed in your questions, we have the panelists who will be able to attempt those that we can answer directly. But for the rest of the questions, we can attempt them at the end of this presentation. So thank you, Tika.
So Amelia, I'll stop here and you take it from here. Am I right?
Thank you. Okay. Apologies, everyone. Thank you, Etika. So my presentation will be based on the grants application process. So basically, the steps you need to follow in order to prepare and submit concept note and a proposal in the case where you are successful in your concept note submission. Right after the issuing of calls for proposal, which in this case for the Kiwa Initiative local projects component will be on the 22nd of June. Where we will be launching this the Kiwa Initiative local projects component. So that is our first call of proposal, where we will invite interested parties and organizations to submit concept notes. Again, let me just reiterate that there's a two-step process that that we will be using, whereby every interested parties, organizations will have to submit a short concept note before they will be invited to complete and submit a full proposal if their concept note is successful. And the main reason is just to save time for everyone in preparing these documents. So after we've received the concept notes, or if you're successful, you will be invited to submit a full proposal. We will then have a proposals screening and review of these proposals. During this time, the IUCN Oro team and the Kiwa steering committee team committee will be going back and forth with making a decision on which proposals are successful to be awarded a grant. Excuse me, sorry, let me just go back to that slide. Apologies, there must be some, okay. And during the duration of the grant award decision making, there will also be a due diligence and ESMS assessment that will be ongoing. This is to determine whether the prospect grantee follows or is in alignment with the policies that is in place regarding financial capacity and of each organizations that have submitted their proposals, and also to adhere to and align to the environment and social management systems that is in place by the IUCN policies and also with AFD. During this time, this is probably the point where we will determine whether you succeed or not, and whether you will be awarded a grant. So there's a due diligence assessment form that is available. This will require the applicants to complete and submit to the committee to be part of the reviewing, the screening and review process. Once you have passed this, you will go on to contracting and finalize an agreement with the successful grantee, and then from there we will start with fund disbursement. And during the duration of the implementation of the project, there will also be an M&E framework in place to ensure a successful implementation of all the activities. We will also take into consideration communications and knowledge management, and we will also be requesting that the successful applicants or grantees capture stories and success stories that will also be used as lessons, sharing of lessons learned between countries and also between partners. With the grant announcement, so after this is a basic overview of the grant call, the call for proposal. So you have there the very small and small medium grants budget range in the duration of the projects. And there you have on the fourth column is the concept proposal closing date. So from after the 22nd of July, when we officially launch the Kiwa Initiative local project component for very small projects, grants, you are expected to submit your concept notes by the 30th of September, likewise for the small grants, and August 31st for the medium grants. And during this time, after the submissions, there will be a 1-month review before the IUCN Oro and the steering committee will issue invitations to successful concept notes, only to those that have been successful. And this will then allow you to incorporate the comments or instructions that have been given after the review, so that you may be able to submit a full proposal. So the proposal development, as you can see there, you will be given 2 months to develop your full proposal and submit to the review committee, who will then be given a 1 month to review and assess and also to determine which projects or which organizations the grants will be awarded to. So there is a duration of 2 months before any organizations will be notified whether they have been awarded the grant or not. So that is basically a timeline of the call of proposals, right to concept writing and proposal writing, right up until the grant is awarded. So this is just the difference between the concept note and the full proposal. As I've mentioned, it's a 2-step process. So you can see that the concept note is pretty brief, whereas for you to submit a full proposal, we require information in greater detail. And also you have several additional requirements. So the concept note and the full proposal templates, there's a standard template that will be used by all the applicants. This will be made available on the IUCN Kiwa website, webpage. This will also go live next week after the launch on the 22nd of June. So as I've mentioned, each interested parties will have to submit a concept note. Only successful concept notes will be invited to submit full proposals, with the exception of very small grants. For very small grants, you will only need to submit a concept note, and for the small and medium grants, you will need to submit both the concept note, and once successful, you will be invited to submit a full proposal. So all of these the templates will be made available on the web page. Again, for the grant award decisions, so there's a standard review process that we will be using. That will be based on relevance to the IUCN priorities, and also we will be taking into consideration your national government priorities, development priorities, of course, with the objectives of the Kiwa initiative local projects component. Also the feasibility, the technical quality of the project, and the concept note and proposal layout. This will be reviewed, and also the cost effectiveness. Again, I must make mention of this, that there is no obligation for IUCN to approve or to approve all full proposals for funding. So there may be instances where you're invited to submit a full proposal after successfully passing the concept note stage, review stage. In the case where some do not fully incorporate the feedback or the review comments that have been made by the committee, there is a possibility that you may not be awarded the grant. So there is a point criteria that the committee, the review committee, that will be using, and we fully expect that all comments that have been given to successful concept notes to be incorporated into the development of your full proposal. So that is something to bear in mind should you reach this stage. So once the funding decisions have been made, as I've mentioned, the applicants will be notified by email, and also IUCN Oro will also be able to send invitations, grants by invitation to projects or activities that we see that aligns well to the Kiwa initiative objectives. and this is also a possible way of being awarded grants. And also, as I've mentioned in the earlier presentation, due diligence and ESMS, this is a critical point in reviewing all applications, all proposals that will be submitted, that it is in close alignment to policies, IUCN policies and the AFT policies that will also be made available on the IUCN Kiwa initiative local projects webpage. Don't worry, after this, one of the team members will be sharing on the chat box the webpage link. So here is the assessment criteria. With relevance, basically, again, alignment with the Kiwa investment priorities, and also to consider national and regional context and needs, feasibility. We will also consider the complexity and the scope of the proposed work, and the management capacity and technical capacity. This is where the due diligence assessment report will come in place, and also with ESMS. Also, we will consider synergies with other projects and initiatives. With technical quality, we will review the proposed objectives and see that they are achievable and also contribute to the proposed goal. We will review the proposed activities' contribution to the achievement of the proposed objectives, and activities that generate the proposed outputs and expected impacts will also be reviewed with the cost effectiveness. This will review the proposed budget, that it is appropriate given the likely cost of the proposed work. So all of this will pass through the due diligence assessment and the review committee. And lastly, we will also consider the applicant's capacity for financial management. Next steps. This was a question that was very common in yesterday's session, whether there will be any capacity building support available. The answer is yes. Basically, we will be recruiting a capacity building officer very soon, and they will be taking the lead in providing capacity building support for organizations or representatives who will be in with regards to concept notes development and proposal development and writing, including other project management skills that could be of assistance to upskill locals that will be preparing or sending in concept notes and proposals. So we will be conducting a weekly capacity building webinar every Thursday. So we will be beginning on the 24th of June, and each week we will be focusing on different areas that we see will be of great assistance to organizations in ensuring that they deliver quality concept notes and other assistance that they will need regarding project management and other areas related to the project. So for this first capacity building webinar on the 24th of June, we will be focusing on concept note writing. So if you would like to be part of this capacity building webinar, we will be sending out a link very soon for registration. So you can keep checking the Kiwa, IUCN Kiwa initiative webpage for more details on this. Lastly, the official launch, as I've mentioned, is at 9 a.m. Fiji time on Tuesday, 22nd June. And I believe you're all invited to this official launch of the Kiwa Initiative Local Projects component. Thank you. So that's basically an overview of the grant application process. Opening the time now for Q&A. Thank you. So I'll start off with the questions. One of the questions says, who is doing the screening of proposal and makes decision on grant award? Is the steering committee? If so, what is the composition of the steering committee? Thank you. So I guess I've already mentioned a bit on this topic. Will I invite Etika if he can add on to this question, to the answer to this question.
Yes, all the decision of the projects will be done within the IUCN Oceania system. In terms of steering committee, it's not a political steering committee. It's really a technical steering committee that checks already the system that is within IUCN to screen projects and proposal. So there is a unit within IUCN. If you look at the slides that I presented earlier, it does. So it's internal, but it will be supported by external experts, technical experts. Yep.
Thank you, Tika. Hope that answers your question, Patricia. There's this question from Kelly Thomas Brown. The question is, can institutional overhead costs be included in the budget? I'll answer this. The short answer is yes. So this your budget will have to include staff costs, administrative costs, rent, and we'll also put out the ineligible costs. So this will come in the stage when we are in the contracting stage. So the final details of this will be shared with you then. And also we'll mention, this will include for small and medium grants, you will be required, the medium grants, you will be required to also include in your budget audit. This is with exception of the very small and small grants. For medium grants, although all the grants will be, projects under the grants will be audited, it is only the medium grants that will be required to include in their budget audit costs. So again, back to your question, Kelly, yes, the overhead costs will be included in your budgets. Hope that answers your question.
Wonder if we can ask Semisi, our finance manager, to add to the costs there.
Thank you, Etika, and thank you, Amelia, and thank you to everyone listening in to this presentation. Yes, we do include the overhead cost in your, if you can include that in your proposal, because that's part of how you run the project. Yeah, I think nothing further to add from my side, since Amelia have covered that question well.
Okay. I wonder, let me just, Amelia, just to introduce Bettina, who is with us in the panel. Bettina, one of some questions that are coming on whether they can apply for 2 grants. Wonder if, well, just on general, for general answer to the question is, it's not advisable that, also it's good that we focus on 1 grant. At this juncture, it'd be good to also hear from Bettina on the other components, which are bigger, more than the 400,000 threshold. The question have been coming also from yesterday. There have been questions on organizations that want to do multiple grants. I think the answers have been given to some, but I wonder, Bettina, if you could just alert the participants on the other components that are much bigger if people are looking for grants that are big over the current, this component. Bettina, you're there? Can't hear Bettina.
Tika,
Yep.
if I can just jump in, I think there's no prohibition against multiple applications from the same organization, but I think that we would certainly like to see grants spread widely to build capacity around the region.
Yeah.
So there's no prohibition, but I think, as you said, for organizations to focus on 1 grant would probably be advisable.
Yeah. Okay. Can't seem to get Bettina. Back to you, Amelia.
Thank you, Etika. So one of the questions here says, probably Semi, if you can address this, is an audit of the last 2 years required in the concept of full proposal package when an organization submits a medium grant?
Thank you, Amelia. I think Ken can answer that question well in terms of what's if I take it correctly, that's a due diligence questions. I think Ken can answer that properly in terms of what needs to be submitted. But normally, in a grant for a grant proposal to be looked at, we need to get the most recent financial of the grantee, just so that it gives the confidence in terms of how they will handle how will they financially manage the grant that is given. That's the whole concept around it. Whether it is an audited account or not, I think Ken can answer the that question.
Thanks, Misi. Yeah, the point here, and the point with the due diligence is to make sure that the organization can manage the project. So for the medium-sized projects, we would expect an organization applying for the medium-sized projects to have had some experience managing similar or just right up to that level of funding that they're applying for. If your organization doesn't have that experience, then it might be best to go for one of the very small or small grants to get that experience first.
Thank you. Hope that answers your question. Next question is, how many projects per country can be supported in each level of funded support in very small and medium-sized support? Maybe Tika, you can address this question.
Okay. Yeah, there's no There is no threshold or number given to each country. There are broad, like I mentioned, there are broad targets that IUCN looks at for the different categories of the small, very small, and medium. And there are some thresholds just for ACP countries and OCT, the French territories. Thanks.
Thank you. So I just received an apologies from Bettina. There's an issue with her mic. So just in reference to a question that was asked earlier. So for regional projects, there is no restrictions in terms of the number of projects submitted. However, the requirements are high, and we recommend that potential project leaders focus on submitting only one regional project to ensure quality. So I guess that refers to the question where a country can submit several, or an organization can submit several proposals or applications for each of the grant levels available. So I hope that answers your question. And there's a question from Mr. Peter Dam. It says, when will the second call for proposals be? So we're hoping to launch the second call for proposal by early next year, early 2022. And I will ask Ken if he can add on to this question if he wishes.
Nothing to add from me, Amelia. You got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
And basically for the calls, so we have set out a timeline for calls for proposal. It will mainly depend on the quality of the concept notes and proposals that we receive. So that will pretty much determine whether we will issue calls or not. So once we reach the limit of the proposals or the grants that is to be awarded, that will be it. But to answer that question, we're hoping to launch the second call for proposal in early 2022. So the next question is from Delcy. Would technical support be given to grantees all through the implementation period of a project? Etika or Ken, if you can address this question.
Yeah, I'll address that. The answer is yes. We will be providing technical support, especially if you need some technical support in thematic areas. But from in terms of our role, there will be monitoring and evaluation. There will be support in terms of reporting capacity and making sure your grants are reported in terms of technical and financial reporting. Also, as you know, we need to report back to the donors. So we'll assist you on some indicators that we will work with you on to make sure that your project impacts are reported well back to the donors.
Thank you, Etika. Next question. Audits from other crop agencies, UNDP, etc., such as HAC assessments valid? I guess this is for the submission of the concept notes or the proposal. So are audits from other crop agencies, such as HAC assessments valid? Ken, maybe you can address this.
Amelia, that might be beyond my pay scale to answer that one. I'll give it a shot, but if Samisi has any thoughts, I'll be happy for him to jump in. I think it depends upon the size of the grant that you're applying for, the level of due diligence that will need to be done. The larger the grant, the more due diligence scrutiny that you'll get. And so it's best to have your own audited accounts or accounts that can be reviewed or audited if necessary. If you were part of a project that had an audit and that audit included your organization or your part of the project, and that's all you've got, then I would suggest submitting it, and the due diligence review will be done. And if there are questions, they'll come back and ask you questions about it.
Thank you, Ken. For the next question, it's asked, for very small grants, is there a specific timeline outlined for projects? Yes, it's between 18 months to 36 months for the full implementation right up to the closing of the project. We'll ask Etika to answer the second part of this question. Are we still eligible to apply for the grant if our project begins before the application review process? Thank you, Etika.
Apply for the grant if our project. The calls for proposal would basically you don't need to worry about this timing, because you would have already here whether your grant, be it concept or proposal, is successful before we open for the next grant begins. So in terms of eligibility, yes, you can apply for the next calls, be it, so you won't, we will be in close communication with you if yours is still pending. So the answer is yes, and we'll work closely with you if there are some lapse on timing.
Thank you, Etika. So we have only 3 questions left. I believe we should be able to wrap up after this, and we're well ahead of our schedule. Just while we are addressing these 3 questions, may I kindly ask attendees if you can just very quickly attempt this last poll for today while we address these questions. Pretty straightforward answers. Basically asking which countries you are representing. So I'm launching this poll while we're addressing the question. So feel free to answer whenever you would like to, but hopefully before we end with this session. So the next question is, can an organization apply on behalf of a community who are not set up to manage grant or has a grant history? Etika, if you may, please.
Oh yeah, yes, the answer is yes. No, Sammy is asking the question, so definitely that's really the core of the grant call, so that the organizations that are facilitating communities could access the grant for the target communities.
Amelia,
Amelia, your mic is
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
you're talking to yourself.
I'm talking to my screen. So in regards to audit accounts, for an organization who doesn't have one, but has worked with international NGOs to support its efforts in tackling environmental and climate challenges, and has a good plan for its proposal, can they still apply for the medium grants? Ken, maybe you can address this question.
Again, very happy if Samisi wants to weigh in on this. I would say, for the medium grants, the due diligence is going to be higher than for the very small grants. So you do need to be able to show that your organization can manage financially grants of that size. There are real financial reporting and monitoring aspects of these grants. So you do need to be able to show that you can manage them. If you don't have an audited accounts, then you would have to find some other way to assure the due diligence process that you'll be able to manage the accounts. And that can be difficult. So you could possibly partner with an organization that has audited accounts to go for the medium-sized grants, or perhaps go for some of the smaller grants that will have slightly lower due diligence requirements.
Thank you, Ken. Etika, would you like to add on?
Sorry, if I can add on, Amelia.
Sorry,
Let me see. I think this is again a governance question through the due diligence that needs to be done. Because the medium grant, we are talking about funding of more than 100,000 to 400,000 euro, and for IUCN to manage that level of funding well with the grantees, the grantee have to show that they have the capability to financially manage the amount that is given to them. I think I'll leave it in there in terms of the audited accounts. If this organization does not have an audited account, the consideration of that grantee as compared to one that has an audited account, it will be more weight through the one that have the audited account. Again, we have the technical aspect of the project to look at as well. So the steering committee will have to weigh those points and consider which one to give which grantee to be allowed the kind of fund that we need to give. So it's more about the how well the grantee can financially manage the money that is given to them. Naka.
Thank you, Semi. Let me see. Thank you. Next question is, could IUCN help to connect organizations with similar projects in order to maybe develop regional projects? Etika or Ken, can you address this question?
Hi, Amelia. Hi, Etika. I can jump in here. I think that the idea for these grants, it's called the local initiative. So the Kiwa initiative has a regional component that is managed by the Kiwa Secretariat and AFD, and they have an open call for proposals for large regional grants now for 1.5 million euros. So for large regional projects, I would suggest applying to that, and you can find that on the Kiwa Initiative website. For this type of grant, we aren't necessarily looking for regional projects because the budgets are relatively small and the transaction cost of travel would eat up a lot of the budget. So we would suggest that you focus on a single project in a single country. However, if you do want to do projects in multiple countries, note that you need to have organizations on the ground, local organization partners on the ground in those countries. If there is an instance where we see many projects coming in around similar themes, we'll be happy to connect them to work together for joint technical support and that kind of activity in the capacity building part of the project. I hope that answers the question. Atika, anything to add on?
None from me, Ken. Sorry.
Thank you, Ken and Atika. So I think we have reached the end of the session today. So just in response to this last question, for the rest of you, if you still have questions that you feel needs to be answered, feel free to email us and we'll be glad to respond to your questions. So I will give this time back to Etika as he wraps up our session this morning. And once again, thank you all so much for your participation.
Thank you, Amelia. Thank you, everyone. I'm seeing we have reached at the moment 75 participants. As you see, this is the two sessions yesterday and today, where the intention was really to hear from you, your questions. Please note that we are taking note of all the questions. Moving forward, we will have a Q&A, a question frequently asked question in the web page. So your questions will be summarized so that the similar recipients, those that are wanting to apply for the grant could have the same answers to the questions. So we really, really want to thank you for all the questions that you have raised. That is one of the big objectives of these two sessions, is to really hear from you. What are your questions? This now gives us a good place to. There are some questions, to be honest, are very new to us. So we'll rediscuss it and make sure the answers are up on the web page. We're looking at the web page to be up by next Monday or by the weekend, so you can then log in and actually revisit some of your the general frequently asked questions. So thank you very much. Please don't worry too much that all your questions are not answered yet. As Amelia said, we will have webinars every week. That's your opportunity to come back to us and continue asking your specific question. And that our first one will be on June 24th. So every Thursday at 10 a.m., Amelia will be live on this webinar channel. As you know, as we face the challenge of COVID, IUCN team cannot come to your countries. So we will be doing a lot of these virtual meetings, interaction. So please, if this is not working, we know there are some countries that we're still reaching out to because of internet issues, but we do really want to make sure that you have all the information you need. So with those, a warm thank you again on behalf of our regional director, who was hoping to join us to say a few words of thank you, and acknowledging again the donors, AFD Secretariat, AFD, and the French National Committee, and of course our IUCN team who are supporting this webinar. Also to let you know, we have, I think, more than 5 youth volunteers that are behind the scene, collecting all of your questions, teasing them out, and just to acknowledge also the volunteer support. So thank you very much, and stay safe. And Pinaka Bakalebu from IUCN team. Malemata. Oh, Mason, sorry, I just saw
Vinaka team, thank you for the
online.
awareness session. It's
May-
okay, Vinava Levu, awesome session. We'll be in touch with everybody shortly.
Nakawale po, Mason.
Climate change is among the major challenges faced by communities, especially in the Pacific. We urgently need to adapt. The Kiwa initiative believes nature-based solutions help adapt to climate change and preserve biodiversity for the well-being of communities. Food security, health, disaster mitigation, economic resilience, closing the gender gap. Nature-based solutions for climate change adaptation come with many benefits. Let's support nature, humbly, responsibly, respectfully, with solidarity with the people of the Pacific, today and tomorrow. Let's build the Kiwa Initiative community together. Climate change is among the major challenges faced by communities, especially in the Pacific. We urgently need to adapt. The Kiwa initiative believes nature-based solutions help adapt to climate change and preserve biodiversity for the well-being of communities. Food security, health, disaster mitigation, economic resilience, closing the gender gap. Nature-based solutions for climate change adaptation come with many benefits. Let's support nature, humbly, responsibly, respectfully, with solidarity with the people of the Pacific, today and tomorrow. Let's build the Kiwa Initiative community together.